Hello.
Hi,
Thank you for joining us today. How are you, Donna?
I'm good. I am
Good.
good. Sun is shining. It's cold, but we got sunshine.
Yes, we are in the thick of winter here, but it's still sunny, which is beautiful. And we wanted to have a conversation today to invite all of you in what we have been playing with and learning around accessing the fields of peace or gratitude or harmony. Donna and I have been talking quite a lot about this and how much we need it right now. And we feel like this could be of benefit to others as well, because this is a very intense time. I know we've been saying that for a while. And just moving into the new year, 2025, there's a lot of action and moving energy right now. And so this has been one of the things we've both been playing with to support ourselves as we move through this time.
hmm Yeah, and for me, this started with a realization or a little bit of a downloaded wisdom of how much the fields of peace need us humans to embody through into our world, into the physical realm and realities that we all create and interact with and in. So, for me, I've always thought I know I need the fields of peace or the fields of harmony or balance or gratitude or joy, fill in the blank. We're kind of using peace today as an example, but you could relate all that we're saying to the field of any energetic support. And so for me in the past, it's always been like, oh man, I need some gratitude. I need a lot of gratitude right now, or I need balance, or I need harmony right now. And then this understanding, which was so beautiful to me, of how much those energies, those frequencies need us in order to support not only us, but then our whole world through us. So, we really wanted to share a little bit deeper on that today with you, on that idea, because of this beautiful, messy, chaotic time that we're in this year, 2025, that's shaping up to be quite a year. And to be able to do this, access these fields of very supportive, high frequency energies as medicine or as counterbalances to what we experience as we walk through this year. So that's kind of the purpose. Um, being embodied, obviously, being human, being embodied in this physical realm gives us deeper and broader access to everything in it, more so than the unembodied energies and consciousnesses. And so, looking at it from that perspective, um, we have great power. There's probably a better word for that, but great power to impact our world as an embodied human by accessing these fields and these energies. So, of course, all energies are available to us, but we have to intentionally connect to them, invite them in, feel them, embody those energies. And honestly, a lot of times we're generating. We have the ability to generate or create those energies too. So no matter how we're accessing those, it is an intentional thing for us to connect to those, create those, feel those, bring those through us, and then intend that those go out beyond us to impact our realities and our physical world. Diana, what do you have, or experiences or stories or additional thoughts for that?
Well, something that really struck me when we first started talking about this was how you had had such a profound and deeply visceral emotional experience around how the fields of peace need us. And I had recently watched an interview between Rory Duff, who's this amazing teacher on the ley lines and the energy lines, the dragon lines, all of that, Mother Mary lines of Earth, an interview with him and Pam Gregory, the astrologer. And he was talking about how we have to choose them and step into them and therefore create them. And in order to do that, it necessitates the opposite. So, like a field of chaos that's already there and active and present. And within that, that is the opportunity to say, I'm choosing to step into and therefore pull in or create the field of peace. And that really stood out to me of like, oh my gosh, because I had thought of it almost backwards before that of like, okay, I'm going to be peaceful. I'm going to access peace. I'm going to go into that field and there I be, instead of that, oh wait, we are the creators of all of this and the co-creators. So these fields are already here and present, but which one are we stepping into through our consciousness or our embodied experience and choice? So just yesterday and again this morning, I had been feeling just a lot of like dizziness and nausea and just ugh, or I'd go into like an anxious state and I'd be like, oh, okay, I am going to access the field of peace. What does that feel like? And so it was first the thought, and then it was like, well, what is an example of peace in my body? Well, for me, it's my morning journaling time when I'm sitting on my couch and I have my cup of coffee and my dogs are sitting next to me and my journal and my pen is in hand, and I can look out the window at the sunshine coming through and reflecting on my crystals, which sends rainbows around my room. And that setting and all the assists in it creates this like spacious feeling of calm that usually starts at my heart and spreads out. And that's what I would call the, activating or accessing that field of peace from within my body. So I've been playing around with that, and how do we access them? And then you said something earlier before we started recording of there is this thought or belief or desire that we're going to access it and stay there. And that's just not the case. And so I really loved that you said that, and would love to hear more of your thoughts around that. Because for me, I definitely also had that as like, okay, then I'm going to be peaceful all day. And then the next text message comes in and I'm like, oh God. So I feel the back and forth. And I also feel the assist of it. So how to come into, I guess, the reality of it, of that does happen. We are moving in and out of these different fields all the time. So how do we continue to choose that or get back to it, I guess?
Mhm. Well, and you started with talking about the contrast of it, that peace is only peace in contrast to not peace. uh, so, yeah, everything that you're talking about is really talking about contrast and the backdrops and the back and forth and the up and down, the in and out.
Mhm.
And I think building that into part of our expectation, or using that to set appropriate expectations in terms of, is peace still peace if that's all we're experiencing all the time? Not really. So, how much of the time do we need to be in peace? How much of the day or how many times a week do we need to sit or walk or exercise, or whatever method or mode we use to access peace or gratitude or balance or whatever? Um, how much do we need to counterbalance and to make us thrive, to help us flourish and thrive in a chaotic world? Becomes the very specific formula for each of us, and to really pay attention, for me. And that even changes. My formula changes day to day and week to week and month to month because our world is changing so drastically. My environment's changing so drastically. Who I interact with, the weather, even all of it, right, is just in a constant state of incredible, incredible change. So then it becomes, I guess, a practice to check in every morning and maybe even during the day and maybe even in the evening. And especially when I know I'm out of balance, of what do I need? What supports or energies do I need? As well as physical supports, of course. And then how much, can I do this with 5 minutes? Can I tap into peace for 5 minutes? And will that bump me back to where I want to be flourishing and experiencing at?
Mhm.
And counteract the rest of the day. Will 5 minutes of peace counteract the rest of the day of chaos?
Yeah, maybe. I'm curious how you access it. Like if you can share any examples, and I know that changes, but
Well, like you
in,
said, I'm always prompted because I need it. I like the idea of getting out ahead of it, and sometimes I accomplish that. But typically, it's that contrast that, like, oh man, I feel so out of balance and it does not feel good. Or I need to perform or be in this specific frequency or frame of mind for something that's coming up and I'm not there. So, so then what I'll do, for me, it's getting quiet. And because I'm intellectually centered, um, so between a moving center, an emotional center, and an intellectual center, we all operate in those three centers, but we usually do it in different orders. And so my pattern is intellectual, emotional, moving is the order I do those in. So naturally, I will access peace intellectually, which is just to intend and call that in. And then I start feeling it. And then I start doing it. So, I start writing about it, speaking the words of it, doing peaceful actions. That's my specific pattern. Um, what would you say yours is through that lens?
yeah, I was gonna say that's a great lens to talk about because we do all have a different order. That's our natural order. And for me, and maybe that's a great way to how to access it for ourselves is to think of it in that manner. Like I am more of a emotion center first and then moving and then intellectual, although those can flip flop.
Yeah.
So, but emotions always first for me. And so from there, I either move into, action, like solution. I need to change this now, or I need to step into a different state now. So I start doing the action of it, of, feeling into my heart, bringing in the supports, the actions of accessing. Other times I will intellectualize. So I will journal about it, and the journaling, the thinking about it moves into the action. So those go both way for me. But I love that because for everybody watching this, to check in, what would be my first thing when something happens? Do I react and do something? Do I feel something first, or do I think something? And identifying that within ourselves could be a great avenue to, well, how do I shift from chaos and anxiety to peace and gratitude? So yeah, I'd say for me that's usually how that goes. And the um, the gratitude piece, you had mentioned that earlier. If you can't get right to peace right away, what can you get to?
Mhm.
And I'd love for you to share that map of consciousness here in a minute, but just talking about the high frequencies of all of these states. And it's, on the map of consciousness, it talks about hope is, higher than anger, but it's lower than love or gratitude. And so, what is the most positive state or feeling I can get to now? And then working up from there. And that will help me sometimes. If there's like no shred of peace around me that I can feel, see, or think of, I can think of something I'm grateful for. That for me is a huge access point to higher states because I've been actively practicing being grateful and writing my lists every day for years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, sometimes we need to bridge. Peace is, and I'll share the map of consciousness here in a second, but peace is an exceedingly high frequency. And so if we're at an exceedingly low frequency in what, our environment and what we're feeling and everything, sometimes making that leap just feels impossible, and we have to kind of step or bridge our way there. So what is our practice in accessing higher frequencies? And for a lot of us, it's gratitude, even neutrality, or balance, or beauty. Beauty is an exceedingly high frequency, but for some reason, I think it's easier to access sometimes because you can, if you're imaginative, you can imagine beauty. You can find something maybe in your environment that is beautiful to you. You can go online or on your phone and
mhm,
find beauty. What's beautiful to you? What is the most beautiful to you? Is it cute puppy videos? Is it a waterfall? Is it sounds? So yeah, bridging, thinking about if you do have the experience of not being able to get to where you're trying to, whether that's peace or joy or something else, and you run into that roadblock, I would suggest, or we would suggest, figuring out what your bridges are, what your steps are, to get there. And maybe you don't need, maybe it's not peace you need. Maybe gratitude is what you need most in that moment. And that's going to bring balance to you. That's going to help you thrive and flourish in your
Mhm.
now moment. What else did you say, Diana? You were talking about something else.
I was talking about well, I think just the map of consciousness and the step up to it of how to access it. But
Yeah.
I love that idea of beauty as well, because there's always something beautiful around us. And you're talking about music. I know that's a big access point for people to
Mhm.
be able to change our state. And it is for me sometimes too, of just putting on, it can be a variety of things. It could just be frequencies or singing bowls or, soft classical. And that
Mhm.
is definitely those sound and vibrations will help already just to pull me out of that. Usually it's a spinning in my mind and body.
Yeah. Or, of course, anything in nature, the sound of rain
Mhm.
or wind or the feeling. It kind of, again, depends on how we all work, right? Like which of our senses
Mm,
are the strongest, and then using that. For some people, it's maybe texture, finding something super soft or I don't know,
mhm.
maybe bumpy, I don't know, dirt, sand, something like that. For some people, it's definitely, or a lot of people, it's definitely sight, smells, great sense. Do you remember that tool that Brenda, our naturopathic doctor, shared with us? Um,
Just
what,
thinking you were saying that.
yeah. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I love that tool. And it immediately popped in my mind, probably the same time as yours, is to pull ourselves out of a state of crisis or anxiety or, trauma response, PTS. So many people are having experiences of that being triggered right now, is to employ all five senses at the same time. So look at something in your environment that is pleasing to your eyes, that draws you. Um, Smell, like if you have an essential oil or, a good food or some sort of a good smell, a little sachet of lavender, she suggested, keep it by your bed or whatever. And then listen to the sounds around you. It doesn't have to be curated. You can just access what's immediately available in that moment. And then touch something like you were saying of, something, anything texture wise. Um, and then what was the other one? Sight,
Sight, smell, sound, hearing,
sound, and touch. Yeah.
and taste.
And taste.
Mhm.
Yes. Tasting something, even if it's water or a mint or whatever it is, and bringing those all in at the same time, because that grounds us back into our body, back into the present moment, because
Mhm.
all of those anxious chaos, all that are not present moment.
Right.
So, and I've used that, and it's amazingly effective to bring me back from wherever I am mentally, emotionally, energetically to this in my body, because this stuff is all embodied. I mean, we're here having this human experience, right? We've been talking a lot about this lately of, yes, we're a spirit inhabiting the body, but we're here to have the human experience, the embodied experience. And so it has to change from within us in our body, not out here as a concept.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and as a real quick snippet of we had a session 2 days ago, and they talked about the light body. There's all this talk about bringing in the light body, and they defined that very differently. They meaning, guides and masters and beautiful consciousnesses that we got to talk to in session. They defined it as bringing more light into our body in terms of more awareness, more soul, more spirit, but bringing it into the body. It's not that our body is becoming less of a body. It's
Mhm.
that our body is becoming more aware, more conscious, more expanded in these ways that we would call the ways of light. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that makes me circle back to your statement of the fields of peace need us. And back to that, the whole morphic fields of resonance that Rupert Sheldrake brought us into awareness of as a reality of what we do, what we put into physically or thought wise or emotionally or whatever, word wise, is what we're contributing to creating. And so when we say, I'm going to access this field of peace or harmony or gratitude from within my body, that's anchoring that into this whole planet, to this field of reality, to this collective consciousness that we're in.
It
In
becomes what we create from, the fuel that we use to create reality and physicality from. Yeah.
yeah, just so cool. And to that, do you want to, with the map of consciousness that we're talking about, this is from the book Power versus Force with David R. Hawkins. And this whole series of books, highly recommend. It is incredible what he shows of how all this works, consciousness in form. And this map of consciousness is where they have measured the frequency of all of these different emotions. Um, is it thoughts too, or is it more just emotions?
I
And
would say
so
it's energy.
it's energy itself. And seeing how the more positive ones have a much higher frequency and the lower ones have a much lower frequency, which is where we talk about density versus the higher, faster, lighter vibrating things. And so from this, it shows when we are in these different states where we are vibrating at. And that is also what we're putting out and also what we're feeding. And do you know what page this is
So
on?
I can look in a minute, but if you look at peace, vibrates at 600. I believe these are hertz, megahertz. I don't remember if they're hertz or megahertz, but this is what they've been measured at, these different things. Enlightenment, peace, joy, love, all those things. So we're primarily looking at these things and where they're vibrating at.
Mhm.
Um, and you can pull this up online, the map of consciousness. You can access and even print out that. It's
Mhm.
a very useful tool. Um, it really helps, I think, not only intellectually, but I think all of our beingness start to digest the frequencies of the energies that are available to us and that are in us and that are working through us, whether they're the higher ones or the lower ones, and really start to recognize, oh, when I'm feeling anger, which there is a lot of excellent reasons to feel anger, right? That needs to be part of our human experience, absolutely. But when I'm feeling anger, I'm vibrating at about 150. Um, just really familiarizing ourselves with this truly does become a map, I think. Um, and then I'll hold up the other one. Anything else you want to say about that before I?
Yeah, just to dovetail on what you just said, that it truly is a map in my own personal experience of that. When I'm feeling anger, that may not be the time to have a talk with someone of a peaceful or neutral nature. And so I've had a couple very strong examples of this recently. I had to have two really difficult for me conversations recently, and I chose to move through all those other emotions first and process those on my own as to move myself up this map of consciousness until I could access the state of neutrality and peace I was really going for, because I wanted to go into these conversations from a peaceful, loving, kind state of mind. And so I used my own techniques, and which part of that is journaling for me, and thinking through it, movement, yoga, meditation, to allow all of those and move through them, to keep accessing the higher one and then the higher one and then the higher one, until I felt like I was in a place where I could go into this conversation and from the field that I wanted to be in, to have it. So that was very useful to me to think of it in that way of, okay, now I'm feeling anger. Okay, I need to move through all that, get all that out. What's next? Oh, well, now I feel a little bit of hope. Now I have a little bigger perspective. Now I feel a little bit of gratitude for what I'm learning through this experience, until I could, get myself to the place to go into this field that was already like, ah. So it was helpful.
I love that example. And so then intentionally having those difficult conversations from the fields you wanted to be in or the frequencies you wanted to be in, how did that work out?
So good. I mean, so much better than my fears told me they could. And that was, both times I did it consciously, and it was just verified of, this really works, because they both stayed peaceful. And I was able to maintain because I was like, I am coming from love, I'm coming from peace, I'm coming from kindness. And it reminds me of those are more powerful vibrations and frequencies and that I was emitting. And so that's another thing I think about doing this is when we are the higher we are admitting, the easier it is for it to spread out and for whoever else is around you to feel that and
Mhm.
enter into it. So that's the other part of it, I think, is that it is that powerful. And time and again, you and I talk about people say, oh, you feel so good to be around. And it's because we do this work behind the scenes, so to speak, um, in order to feel good to be around, because we want to feel good in ourselves, right? When we're out and about and interacting. And it does get reflected back. And these difficult conversations were reflective of that too. It could have
Mhm.
very easily gone combative and in a lot of different ways, and it just didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, being super conscious of our impact because we're always all impact in each other. We just are, all of us, and becoming conscious and aware of that is one of the steps to then being intentional about it, knowing you're impacting people, knowing your frequency is impacting people, which is what this next chart is all about. Um, is in itself such a useful tool to move through life and through all the things that matter and to really construct and consciously create all of our reality, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that example. That's cool. All right, so this other chart, same book, Power versus Force by Dr. David R. Hawkins. And this is so I was going to share the page number on the last one. The page number on the last one is 318 and 319. The page number on this chart is on 303. Huh, that's fun numbers. Um, and this is all about how the higher frequency that we are in, that we are vibrating at, the more people we're actually impacting. And we'll show you, or I'll show you. Diana, I'm going to hold it up and maybe you can talk through.
Yeah, let me see if I can see it, if you can hold it a little bit closer. And this gives me so much confidence, honestly, to know that these numbers act this way. So if you have one or let's see, 12 individuals at level 700, which I believe is joy, equates to 1,000 other people. And so just one person vibrating at let me see here. One individual at the level 700 counterbalances 70 million individuals below level 200, which 200 is kind of that shift from positive to negative as far as vibrationally. One individual at the level 600, so vibrating at the megahertz 600, which I think is love, counterbalances 10 million individuals below level 200.
So
So,
700 is enlightenment, 600 is peace, love
okay.
is 500, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 500, just one of us vibrating at that counterbalances 750,000 individuals below level 200. So when you're accessing and being in your just the state of love, the feeling of love, the mentality of it, you're affecting positively 750,000 other individuals who are in struggle of some sort. And I think about this because we so often don't know our impact. It's like, what's the point? What's the why? Why is this important to do? And I mean, for one, because it helps shift us, helps shift me into a better feeling place. But then to realize just that, just me doing that for me has that big of a ripple is so encouraging and helpful because us helper types, we can get hung up on like, am I helping enough people? Am I doing enough in the world? And we don't realize that everything we're doing something in the world. And so that's helped me get out of that, I call it the healer mindset trap of feeling like we're not doing enough, we're not helping enough. It's like, well, me just sitting at home accessing this field of peace or love is sending it out to that many people, which is far more than the one person I can go sit with to do a session.
Mhm.
So I love it from that perspective.
Yeah, so that they used the counterbalancing um, one individual vibrating at 600, which is the peace level of peace, counterbalances 10 million individuals below 200. 200 is actually courage, and 250 is neutrality. So you're looking at the courage neutrality as kind of that mid bar that they're talking about counterbalancing.
Mm,
Someone above that, and is counterbalancing however many people below that.
mm,
So I
that's
just
cool.
love that. Yeah, because peace is actually, and this surprised me, but they took these measurements using thousands and thousands of people. Um, and you can read all about that in the book. It goes into great detail. It's got a lot of science in it. Um, but I was surprised personally that peace was higher than joy, was higher than love. Some of those things I wouldn't have guessed, right? That they were in that order.
Yeah.
Gratitude. Uh, let me see. Where
Is it
does
on?
gratitude fall? Trying to even find that word in here. It's got to be here somewhere. Hmm.
That's really interesting. It makes me wonder about, is peace above love because it holds love within it? How these
Mhm.
different fields have other, it's not just that one thing. It encompasses all these things that make that up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Probably.
Like blessings, isn't blessings really high on the list? Um, I should have pulled mine out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of words on here.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so happy we got to have this conversation today.
yeah. Me
Um,
too.
hope that it is of benefit to others like it has been for us. But so appreciate being able to have these conversations with you and access these fields and learn more about them, how to do it.
Yeah,
Share.
me too. Yep. We'll just leave ourselves and everybody else with the thought that the fields of peace need us, the fields of joy need us. We've known that the fields of love need us, but I think it's easy to miss the fields of harmony need us, and blessing and hope,
Mhm.
all those things, gratitude. So thank you guys very much for joining us, and we'll talk again soon.